Tomorrow's firing squad execution will have 3 volunteers, each of them with live bullets. It seems pretty straightforward. He'll have a target on his chest so they know where to shoot, and a hood over his face so he doesn't see what's coming.
Yes, thank you for having me, Elizabeth. I can't really speak to the new procedures that have been put in place for this method of execution. I can tell you that politically, it was this entire change in method or additional method was proposed by a Democratic senator in our state Senate who believes that firing squad, as you mentioned, he believes that death by firing squad is more humane than our other alternate method of execution, which is electrocution. When I was director, I had 2 men choose to be electrocuted as opposed to facing lethal injection. That surprised us because that was the first time it had happened that someone had done that in our country in quite a long time, a number of years. I think it was more than a decade. So we had to dust off the manuals and make sure that the electric chair was functional, and they both went off without a hitch. I expect that Director Sterling and his team have been rehearsing, and that the folks there, view themselves. They understand their role. They're not decision makers. They're just the folks who carry out the law, carry out the judgment of the courts. And I think this will go off without a hitch.
The last firing squad execution was in Utah in 2010. In that case, they had 5 volunteers firing guns. One of the people firing the guns had a blank bullet, but they didn't know which one. So that basically nobody actually really knew was either one who actually shot and killed him. But in tomorrow's execution, all the people firing will have live rounds. Why is that?
I can't speak to why they chose to do it that way. I can tell you they're somewhat limited in terms of the capital punishment facility that South Carolina has for this purpose. So short of building an entirely different facility, there were space limitations. But the other reality about that, Elizabeth, is for the most part, even with a fully loaded blank round, an experienced sniper is going to know the difference between firing a blank and firing a bullet for the most part. They've fired so many thousands of rounds downrange. They're going to pick up on that. So you're probably not going to fool them anyway.
Yeah.
So back in the day when you were just using routine GIs, routine soldiers to carry out executions, that's where that history came from, that procedure came from. But with these guys who are professional marksmen and working on special teams with the departments, they're going to know that anyway. And what you want to do is pick people who understand their role, that they're just part of the team that is charged by the state, the citizens of our state, with carrying out the lawful judgment of the court and the jury in this case. And they're going to go in and be the pros that they are, and it'll go off without a hit.
He chose firing squad because he was afraid of lethal injection and electrocution. There have been a couple of executions in other states where the lethal injection drugs hasn't gone quite right. There have been mistakes. There's visible suffering by the people who are administered these drugs. In the executions you've overseen, have they all gone smoothly, or have you seen any problems?
We haven't seen any problems. Most of the mistakes you see are like 90% of mistakes in the world in our lives. They're operator error. For example, if you fail to start months ahead to make sure you're going to be able to find a vein, that's operator error. That's not the fault of the process, of the procedures. You didn't follow them right, or you didn't have the right process and procedures in place. If you follow the procedures, so we never had a problem with a vein because we started checking on that and working on that months prior to the execution. We never had a problem with the drugs because we used the old 3-drug cocktail, which was incredibly efficient. I mean, the first drug puts them to sleep, the second drug stops their breathing, the third drug stops their heart and basically kills the brain waves. They were really effectively dead, clinically dead, within a few seconds of the first drug being administered because it was so much.
Yeah.
I think on each one of those instances, when you hear people say they were suffering or struggling, you'll find an equal number of people who witnessed that execution who said, no, none of that happened.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.